You've probably seen on the news that there have been busloads of illegal migrants just being dropped off in cities like Washington, D.C. and the Big Apple. Why is this happening? Some are saying this is a humanitarian crisis, and others say it's just a publicity stunt. This is a big issue, and Robin and I split time between two border states, California and Texas. So we see a lot of news reported about this and have been to both borders many times in our lives over the years. Now, are these people being forced on the bus, or are they offered the opportunity to get on the bus?
Well, from what I understand, what's happening with the bus situation is that really, from what the clip said, Texas is finding an alternative means to stabilize these foreign nationals in the United States. And the pressure that's having within their communities and within their infrastructure, they are putting them on the bus and they're sending them to other cities. But I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. Most of the people who are coming to the US border right now anyways don't necessarily stay in Texas. They go to other states, they have friends or relatives, they end up everywhere. So the fact that they're now being transported and put to another city, maybe to get those resources, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that.
How is that working at the border? How many of these people are come across the river, for example, and are detained when they come across the river?
And that's the major problem that we're seeing right now. When we're discussing illegal immigration, because that's what we're discussing, we're not talking about legal immigration. If somebody wanted to do this legally, like what you just said, they would present themselves at a port of entry. They would say that they have a credible fear, or they would claim that fear, and they would be processed accordingly. The problem that we're seeing today is these individuals are not crossing at a port of entry. They're making an illegal act. They're entering the country illegally. And once they enter the country illegally, that's when they're then claiming asylum. Once they claim asylum, they have to be processed accordingly. And then they are given the notice to appears. They are given a documentation, which is a de facto legal status, but it is not a complete legal status. All that says is that they're not amenable to deportation immediately until their court cases run through the entire process, unless they commit a crime up until that process.
By the way, I just want to be clear, when we're talking about this happening at the Mexican border, but these are people from a lot of different countries.
Oh yeah, they're coming from the Northern Triangle, they're coming from Congo, India, Vietnam, everywhere. But the majority of individuals right now who are coming to the border are coming from Central America. These are the individuals that we're discussing, right? We're not discussing legal migration, right? We're discussing a foreign national at the border claiming credible fear that they cannot go back to their country, which the Refugee Act allows for. So they're not doing anything illegal.
So
when you identify them as illegal, it can be used as a slur, and it's not a right term.
That is wrong. When they cross the border between a port of entry, that is an illegal act. It's covered under 8 U.S.C. 1325, which I know that you're very well aware of. That is an illegal act. Now, the fact that they claim asylum after that, yes, you can do that. But to cross the border between a port of entry is an illegal act, and it is punishable by 6 months in prison, okay? So yes, it is an illegal act.
Why are they crossing? Why are they, you cannot have this conversation without asking why are they crossing.
You're right. But if you look at the stats, only 10% of the people that claim a credible fear actually show up to their final court date. That is ICE stats. Okay. Those are ICE stats. The vast majority of them—
How long is an asylum case taking right now?
The vast majority of those individuals will disappear into what President Obama termed the shadows of society.
The Migration Policy Institute reports that between 2003 and 22, so this is between Republican and Democrat, that the pending applications have gone from 3 million to 9 million. They're backed up that much. And the cases in front of the immigration court between 08 and 22, in 08, they were back 200,000 backed up. In 22, they're now gotten to the point that there are 1.6 million cases backed up. So an asylum seeker, if they do go through a port of entry, if they do want to do this, take a number. You're 1.6 million in one to get your case heard. These people that are fleeing from countries where they're either cartel or gangs, or they can sit there and watch their people starve to death. They can sit there for another 20 years and wait for this, and the backup will be worse then, and they'll all be dead, or they do something different. They're desperate people. I get that. That's your point, right?
Yeah, I mean, average processing time in asylum case, 8 years.
Correct.
8 years it takes to get your asylum case heard. Right now in the U.S., I mean, it's a mess. Immigration in the United States is a mess. Processing times are taking forever. You have court dates that are scheduled until 2025, 2026 to wait. Forget about things that are going on at the embassy, the legal migration. You want to talk about that? It takes 15 to 18 years to bring your brother and sister here.
According to FBI Director Christopher Wray, the staggering number of people illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexican border poses a significant security issue that can be exploited by terrorists. Now, Sabine's son, Dominic, was a 911 dispatcher killed 10 years ago when his motorcycle was hit by an undocumented immigrant who reportedly had a history of DUI arrest. She says under Trump, the border was more secure. Sabine, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
First off, that regardless of our subject or topic here, that's a terrible thing to happen, and I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So tell me how this happened.
10 years ago, my son was a 911 dispatcher for the Riverside Sheriff's Department, heading to work on his motorcycle at 5:45 a.m. when an illegal alien with 2 felony convictions, 1 deportation, 2 DUIs, which he was on probation for, he had no license, no insurance, no registration, turned his truck in front of my son's motorcycle and killed him instantly. This is what I have left of my son, his ashes. This is it. I'm a legal immigrant. So I came through the front door. I did it the right way. I didn't walk into any place and just demanded anything. I earned my right to be here. I earned my citizenship, and I'm a proud American. The illegal alien was known by the DA and the judge. They talked me out of going to trial. I was still in shock. My world had been ripped apart. And they made a deal with him, a deal with an illegal alien who just killed a citizen and didn't obey our laws. They gave him 9 months and 5-year probation, vehicular manslaughter, and he served 35 days. 35 days for the murder of my child. So when I hear people talk about undocumented immigrants, it's a slap in my face, and millions of people who stood in line, who filled out paperwork, paid a lot of money to make sure America knows who's coming, who's here. And the sad part is, I've met way too many angel moms and dads in the last 10 years, and there will be many more.
Art, what do you think about this situation?
You know, that's the chaos that's been happening for a long time. You know, this helps because you got to come together and find out, you know, what the issues are and how do we fix them legally. I was born in Mexico. I came here legally. I was raised on the border. I grew up on the border. I've lived on the border. I work on the border. I've seen the reality of what's happening down there. I have the experience because I've seen it. And I can tell you that Border Patrol agents, when I see them out there, they're the largest humanitarian organization in the country because they're the ones that I've seen go out there and rescue people. I've seen them carry individuals for miles when they're hurt. I've seen agents bring food from their home and give it to the illegal aliens that are crossing into the United States. I've seen them bring things for the kids that are being held in the detention centers. So it's just terrific to paint them with a broad stroke. That's what bothers me the most of that, you know, they attack these individuals for that. And we're seeing the chaos that is happening. And it is driven by criminals. It's driven by the cartels. The cartels know what areas they can saturate with large groups. They know that's going to have agents respond to that area, remove them from there. Now they're going to be having to do the processing, the transport, Many times they're having to do the hospital watches. And at that time, that's when they're taking advantage to bring their products across. That's when they're taking advantage to bring individuals with serious criminal records into the United States or those that have committed crimes in the past. That is the reality of what's going on down at the border.
You said that you can't paint BP with a broad stroke, but you're painting refugees with a broad stroke, saying that the stats say that refugees actually commit 50% less crime than US-born citizens. And we have to understand this, that this land that we're on right now is indigenous land.
I'm not.
White people
nobody
left
has
England.
ever-
Why did white people stay in
nobody
England? They
has
came and
ever
committed
painted-
100 million genocide.
and
100
again,
million natives
here's
died. This
here's
land
the problem.
was inhabited for thousands of
And
years.
this is the
Native
problem
Americans,
with this
Mayans,
debate.
Mexicas, for thousands of
that
years.
we-
White people
But you
left
can't
England.
sit
Why
there
didn't
and
white
talk
people
about-
stay in England? And then on top of that,
So it's
the
white
US
people's
the
fault.
US
You're
war on
talking
drugs.
about the
The
Book
US
of
war on drugs
Aslan.
caused
The
a
land
huge
was
black market
sold,
where
and
the
that's
cartel.
why we're here.
Okay,
Who's
hold on,
taking the
we
drugs?
can't-
White people.
Racist.
White
Hold
people
on,
consume
hold on.
So it's a
fentanyl.
racist.
Hold on, it doesn't help.
Methamphetamine.
So you're
White
making
people are
it a
taking those
race
drugs.
issue.
So they're demanding
So you're
those drugs.
making it a race
The war on drugs
Wait a minute,
created
nobody's-
So you're
the
making it a
huge
race
black market, which
Nobody
the
is
cartels
hearing
now.
anybody if
And
you're
that's
both
the problem.
talking at once.
Yeah.
In terms of coordination and communication, you make a very good point, and that has to do with the safety of everybody concerned. And maybe I can help with that and lean into it some, because you make a very good point in making sure there's somebody there to receive, that there's safety, that there's some meals provided, that there's all sorts of things that you guys do, and you do very well, by the way. And thank you for the work that you guys do.
No, thank you so much. I mean, and we would appreciate for us to understand what is really going on. If this was a coordinated effort, it would be very different. I think that this is an opportunity to demonstrate how this nation is a country of immigrants, and that we can change the narrative by saying that immigrants throughout our history have been a benefit to this nation. We are stronger in this country because of immigration, not weaker.
And there's a big difference between illegal immigration and immigration. Oh, and let me tell you, if you look at, if you do the math and you look at our birth rate and our projected workforce, we better figure out a way to get these migrants into the country, because we damn sure need them going forward. We've needed them in the past. We are a country of immigrants, and we're going to need them in the future, or we're going to have a real void in our workforce. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt.
We see regularly on TV numbers of people that are crossing in Del Rio, Texas right now. When they flood resources with 500 illegal border crossers, that forces the Border Patrol to deploy resources to that area. When Border Patrol deploys those resources, it takes those resources out of the field. It creates those gaps in coverage, and that is what allows the cartels to bring in those million people that have been able to evade apprehension.
Yeah, because I've worked with the DEA, and they're telling me that they think they seize about 10%
Correct.
of what comes across the border, and what they've seized in terms of raw fentanyl that they believe to be trafficked by the Sinaloa cartel is enough to kill every American walking today.
Twice over.
Yeah, just what they've seized, and that's they
Correct.
just seized a small percentage.
If the U.S. government does designate, for example, that cartel as a terrorist organization, and we have the war on terror going on, there are a lot of government resources that can be used to tackle them appropriately than what's happening right now, which is how they're being able to flood in. And they're using the migrants and using the situation to their advantage, and this is what the issue is. So, I mean, not every migrant that's coming in is doing something wrong or bringing something in. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. And it's very sad, and it's very unfortunate when you have really evil people do really evil things, okay? But closing it and shipping everybody back, or closing it and putting it in a detention center is not going to fix your problem either.
Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.